Greetings and salutations, everyone. I do hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to this night ending bonus. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into this night-ending bonus upload, shall we? Today's first encounter. This experience happened to a friend and I. I'm literally losing sleep over this. My friend and I are still trying to process exactly what we saw on that day. We've talked it through countless times, trying to logically figure out how this is even possible. I recently purchased a small bass boat, and my first mate, Lugov, and I are super eager to explore the lake and its islands, as well as learn the fishing around it. We're new to Tennessee. On the 4th of July, we decided to go fishing in this very secluded part of the lake we named No Man's Land because of the low-hanging bridge that prevents boaters from entering that section. My boat can make it underneath because of how small it is, but I've never seen another boat in there. We decided to go deeper into the cove than we've ever been before. As we're slowly trolling down the lake, the path before us splits into 3 forks, and I ask which fork we should take. Lugov immediately says the middle one, so we continue straight as the water changes from a large lake to a narrow river-like path. This is where the chain of events happened in quick succession, and we've talked through it after the fact to try and recall the order of how this went down. First, we heard a weird vocal-like noise coming from the woods beyond the shoreline, and we both tensed up and felt very uneasy. "What was that?" Lugov asked. "A dog," I said, as that's the first thing that came to my mind. "I don't think that was a dog," Lugov answered immediately. Then we saw a bird high above us, perched on a branch, staring at us. "Maybe it was that bird," Lugov said. "Yeah, maybe," I answered. I'm not sure when it got into my hand, but at some point I drew my pistol and held it down at my side. Lugov held the fishing bow. We both had a very weird feeling as we drifted downriver, eyes glued to the bank. We came to a rotting pine tree that had fallen and was now half submerged in the water, sitting on the shoreline. Then it happened. We hear a very loud, heavy-footed animal running through the woods, getting closer to the water. At first, I thought it was a deer, as it was almost prancing, but as it got closer and louder, we both realized that it was definitely not a deer. It was very large, jet-black canine. My brain thought, oh, must be a coyote, but it was much bigger, like a huge German shepherd. And it was fast, like a black shadow leaping through the trees and quickly approaching the bank that we were floating across from. It didn't seem to have any texture or details, though, almost like it was flat and blurry. We couldn't see fur, or its face and eyes, just the outline of its body and tall wolf-like ears. But it was obviously the body of a canine. Adrenaline started rushing through us, and my brain raced, thinking we were about to have to defend ourselves. It almost looked as if it were charging at us, but it was zigzagging and dodging through the trees towards the exact portion of shoreline we were floating across. We were scared, but the 15 feet of water between our boat and the shoreline gave us some confidence. It would have to swim out to us, and I didn't see that as likely. It continued its leaping through the woods and quickly reached our portion of the shoreline. In one majestic, fluid motion, it leapt off the shore and dove into the water, right under the half-submerged pine tree in front of us. Stomp, 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 splash. That was it. We held our breath as we waited to hear it swim or move towards us. Small ripples reached our boat from the splash. After the fact, Legove swears the splash shouldn't have been much bigger for a creature that size. "Watch for it come back up," I whispered. I had never heard of canines being able to submerge themselves underwater, but here it was happening right in front of our eyes. We waited, nothing, silence. Just the subtle sound of the ripples it made slowly dissipated. We waited 20 seconds, and still nothing. It was almost as if the entire forest had just shut off. Silence. Our eyes were glued to the fallen pine tree it had dove under. "Maybe it's just standing in the water under the tree," Legove says. We get the courage to troll the boat a little closer to inspect the tree, but there's nothing, no sign of anything. At this point, we're in complete shock, stunned it's gone. How could it be gone? Does something that big just vanish, especially a huge creature like that? After 30 more seconds of silence, Legove breaks it with, "You saw it too, right?" A shiver flashes down my spine. "All of it," I replied. "Really, though, WTF was that?" Legove said. I replied, "I think we just saw a demon," and we both nervously laughed. We stayed floating near the shoreline in shock for at least another 10 minutes, hoping for a sign that we were not crazy. Legove scoured the waters, looking to see if it would come up for air, and it never did. How in the hell could a big black wolf-like creature disappear into thin air, or water for that matter? Being skeptics, there has to be a logical explanation to what we saw, but we cannot find one. If it had just splashed the water and gotten out again, 1, we would have seen it walk away in whatever direction, and 2, we would have heard it, as anything putting weight on the leaves makes noise. But it was just silence, the loudest silence. We live in Middle Tennessee, if that helps at all. We're still shaken about this. This is 100% accurate. No BS. 2 things that come to mind after hearing that encounter. I had a subscriber who is from Middle Tennessee, or have a subscriber that's from Middle Tennessee, and he has had 2 Dogman encounters out there. So I don't believe that it was anything but a Dogman. It could have been a demon, but I think it was a Dogman. Now, another encounter that was shared with me a while back was a subscriber. She has a husband, and her husband's dad went out fishing one night, and he was found passed away. But the husband went out there, and there was what I believe to be a Dogman under the water that kind of guided his boat, because there had been sightings of Dogmen by her husband right in that location. And I think they can be submerged. I don't know for how long. But you have to think, if you're using logic, maybe it was getting tracked by a hunter or a government official, and they didn't make themselves known because they came right to the edge wherever and saw the boat. But you've ever seen those movies where people use those reeds for, breath underwater? Well, a dogman has a long snout, so it could, underneath this tree, I'm guessing there's going to be coverage, and we're in a murky part of a lake. This is an inlet with a fallen pine tree, so the silt is just probably fantastic in that region. It's not crystal clear. There's no way possible. So maybe it was using its long snout and just sticking its nose out. Or maybe it was a demon of some sort and just wanted to freak these guys out. Who knows? But it is terrifying. And like I said, I've had an encounter, or a subscriber share her husband's encounter where there was a dogman underwater. And I've had numerous encounters in the file for Tennessee. And one is dead splat, Middle Tennessee. So, all right, moving on to the second encounter. Tonight's second encounter. One night in September of 2005, I was driving home from work around 11:30. I was a waitress at a golf course in a fairly rural area of Michigan. Thus, the shortest distance between work and home was all back roads. As I turned onto the road that I lived on, I saw what I thought was a bear. It was digging through the trash that had been set out in front of a house with a long driveway. It was most likely the length of the driveway that caused the owner to set up a yard light, which was directly above the bear. I was initially excited. I had grown up in this area and people often swore that there were bear. But I had never gotten to see one. Plus, it just so happened to be under the only light on this road. As my car slowed to a stop, I realized immediately that this was not a bear. I wasn't afraid yet, but it was shaped all wrong to be a bear. Plus, the fur was short and shiny like a horse's or a Doberman's. As my car rolled to a stop, I had already seen enough to know that this was not a bear or a canine or even a cat or a deer. It was shaped all wrong. It was hugely muscled. As it dug, I could see the muscles moving in its strangely humanoid shoulders. I'm very confused by now, but I am still expecting to have a light bulb rationalization. It was huge, the shoulders very human and strong, but it hasn't looked up yet. So I just keep staring, figuring my eyes are playing tricks on me. I had been at a full stop for less than 10 seconds surely before it finally looked up, and it was like time stopped. This is the part of the encounter I hate to share for two reasons. One, even after all of this time, I still get goosebumps when I think about it. And two, I know it sounds crazy. The face was hideous, blood-chilling, terror-inducing. It wasn't flat like a man's, but not long like a dog's either. It had some sort of elongated face and a flattened, pushed-up nose. Its eyes glowed red with what I swear was its own light, not a reflecting light. The only light source was my headlights, which were pointed at the road and this yard light above it. And the glow wasn't your standard animal eye shine. It was like the color of a hot electric burner. The mouth was by far the worst. It was massive, think anglerfish style, only the teeth were much larger, broader, and weirdly shiny. Almost metal-looking. It just stared at me, and I stared at it, forcing myself to keep looking, knowing at any moment I would realize it was a mask or a trick of the light. Then it started to stand bipedally like a man. It opened its terrifying mouth in what is clearly an act of aggression, and I floored it. My car fishtailed, and I had a moment of terror as I realized if I went into a ditch, it would be just me and that werewolf. Thankfully, I got it under control and didn't look back. Werewolf was what my brain was screaming, but I'm not sure. Michigan is Dogman country, but no one has ever described him as having a pushed-in nose and a mouth like an anglerfish and shiny teeth. When I got home, a lousy 2 miles away, I drove my car directly up to my porch steps and bolted inside. Thankfully, I have since left the state and have never seen anything like it again. Alright, so I really think this person's thoughts were right. Werewolf. Now, the reason why I say that is because, number one, when Victor used to share, he would talk about a werewolf not looking like a Dogman, nor a Sasquatch, kind of being almost in the middle. Very large. She doesn't mention a tail, which I find interesting. She doesn't say it has a human face either, but it does have kind of a, not a super elongated, but an elongated kind of face with kind of like a anglerfish mouth, which is a very interesting way to describe a monster of that magnitude. That's, I mean, to see one of these creatures would just be, wow. Actually, the more I think about it, maybe that's what I saw that night. But that's neither here nor there on this. Just because it's in Michigan doesn't mean, yes, Michigan is Dogman country. You know, the song is what made it famous, really. Because every state has had a Dogman sighting or continental United States state. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Moving on. Tonight's final Dogman encounter is a subscriber submission. He's going to be coming on to share this with us in his own words, the way he had heard it. Our friend Bo from Arizona, he is the one that had that 8-minute video clip of some sort of creature in a Arizona State Park. He's also the one that went to that Arizona State Park with his wife, and his wife said, "My husband's here to take video of a Dogman." Sometime later, federal rangers are there, and yeah, anyway, this is his father-in-law's experience. My wife's mother's husband was outside having a barbecue at the kids' get-together last night, and he told me a strange story. We were talking about UFOs and other weird stuff, and then I told him, "I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm going to show you something, and I'm going to tell you a story." I showed him the photo that I have on my phone of what I thought was the most accurate of a Dogman I had seen. I showed him the image, and instantly his eyes were bulging out of his sockets, his hair was standing up, and he was saying, "Oh my God, that's the thing I saw when I was 13. It tried to effing kill me." I asked him if he would tell me what happened, and he said yes. His name's Jack. He said he was in Arizona. He was south of Mormon Lake, where there is a small pond where his uncle and his father were out hunting as normal. He was 13 years old, and he had a shotgun with him. He said that they were in the woods at night by a small pond. He had a headlamp on his head, and he was moving in the forest. He heard some noise, and he looked in the general direction, and there was a pair of red glowing eyes. He turned his headlamp flashlight on to the creature he had seen, a large, dark black creature standing before him, about 30 yards or so. He froze in absolute fear, thinking it was a bear at first. Then the creature stood up, and he said it was dark black, and it had a dog's head. He said it was skinny but muscular, with extremely long arms, and an unusually thin midsection. When the light hit the creature, he could see that it had a dog's face, large pointed ears that went straight up. He said its mouth had almost like fangs, not like a dog's mouth, but similar, almost as if like a boar. It began to snarl and growl at him, and it took his hand and swiped the trees in front of it, ripping them apart, he said. The trees were about the size of my legs, so they were smaller trees, but yet they were trees nonetheless. Jack said he was so scared he didn't know what to do. He shot all 3 shots above the head and turned around and began screaming and running, saying, it's after me, back to the car. He told his uncle, there's a monster after me, and jumped into the truck. He said that his uncle and his dad were laughing, saying he needs to calm down. He said, I'm not going over there, I'm done. He was so distraught and kept arguing with him that it wasn't a bear, it was walking on its legs, and we've got to go. They left after. Jack pled with them to go. We have to go. It's going to get us. They went back the next day and they found black hair. They also found huge dog prints that were around the same size as a bear's. It didn't look like bear prints, and they were very creeped out. Jack said he never told anyone about this, never mentioned it to anyone either, because he didn't want to be made fun of. He's about 70 years old now. I asked him if he'd be willing to share his encounter on your show. He said, hell no, I don't need people thinking I'm crazy. He said it'd be okay if I told you about the story, as long as I didn't use his name. I'm telling you right now, Jeff, when I showed him that photo, he looked like he was scared. He even told me that he was getting goosebumps, and that it scared him to look at it. When I looked at his arm, the hair on his arms were sticking straight up, almost as he'd seen a ghost or something. His reaction completely caught me off guard. He said it was 5 to 6 feet. He said it's not as muscular in the chest region as other things. It was skinnier. He said that he knew the thing wanted to kill him. He said he felt like it was pure evil, and he had a feeling of dread as soon as he saw it and made eye contact with it. When it was tearing through the trees to get at him, when he shot above its head, it began rallying and hissing at him. I'll be honest, I don't think it was going to kill him. It would have gone if it wanted to. He had no other bullets. It was only a 3-chambered shotgun. I'm not sure what he was hunting or what you use a shotgun to hunt with, to be honest. He may have even said rifle, but meaning shotgun. I'm not sure. I don't know much about shotguns. He just said his gun had 3 chambers, and he knew it wasn't really going to do anything to this thing. He said throughout his life he had never seen anything like it again. He also said that he did tell the experience to a teacher and some other people when he was a kid, and they were trying to tell him that it was a Sasquatch, but he said it did not look like a Sasquatch. He said it wasn't a Sasquatch. They don't look like that. He also said he never went tent camping again after that, and he never went back to the same area to hunt ever again in those parts of the woods. We Google searched where I saw my experience, and it was in the generalized same area, not saying it was the same creature, but the coincidence is quite alarming. He had also told me some strange stories about weird objects he had seen in those areas, like glowing orbs that would branch off into 6 other orbs and weird things like that. Also, a bizarre cloud one time that would collapse in on itself and then reopen when there was no wind or clouds in the sky. Jack is an outdoorsman. By that I mean he's like a toy hauler kind of guy. Quads, jeeps, all kinds of stuff. I asked if he'd be willing to go back out there, and he said he would if his health gets better, if he had recently had a stroke. So this is my wife's mother's husband, so it would be my wife's stepdad, and my daughter's granddad. I tried to convince him to reach out to you. He said he doesn't want to talk about it or tell other people about it. He's a very keep-to-yourself kind of guy. And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this night-ending bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Thank you for supporting the channel. It really does help. I really do appreciate all of your support. Your support is what keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives us all a platform to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. We are all treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.